All right, so I'm live. Okay, so I'm going to be responding to an email I got. Somebody that follows my Reasonable Vegan channel and has commented a lot and chatted with me a lot. I haven't met them like outside of talking through comments, but they seem to watch a lot of my stuff and react to stuff in the community section. They sent me an email, and let's pull it up. And they, I was asked a couple questions, and I thought it could be worth doing a video response to. So I told them like, hey, if you don't mind, I'd like to do a video response instead of just an email response. And they said, yeah, and that it was fine sharing the name. Okay, so share screen. Let me pull this up. Okay, so this is, I copied and pasted the email here. But this is Nikki Dorr. I don't know if anybody knows this person, but they sent me this email. Okay, so let's respond to this. Let me just get this email lined up. Okay, so here is the email I received. And I'm just going to take it piece by piece. So it says, hey, Carson, I've been subscribed to your YouTube channel for a little bit now, and I like the content. Cool. Thank you. I have been vegan for around 8 years. Me too. But I'm wavering in my conviction to continue this lifestyle. Okay. Mainly due to convenience in the forms of cost, taste, etc. Okay. Essentially, also my motivation just isn't the same anymore. Okay, so let's look at that. Let's look at cost and taste. So cost is interesting. When it comes to cost, it really just comes down to how one wants to live. So me, myself, I actually want to be as healthy as possible. I would love it if I wasn't addicted to a lot of the foods I'm addicted to. And I wish I could just eat fruits and veggies, nuts and seeds, everything like fresh, local, raw when I can, or, cooked when it needs to be cooked, like beans and stuff. But just like finding out what the best thing is to be like fit and healthy and the right weight and just be, have a great life. And when I'm like 90, I can just be the healthiest person in the world. So eating this way, in a lot of regards, is the cheapest way to live. Beans and grains, a lot of nuts, most veggies. This is cheapest. And even a lot of fruits like bananas. It's like Trader Joe's bananas are like 19 cents a banana. So 5 bananas cost under $1, and that's almost 500 calories. So if you were eating the style of Freely the Banana Girl, 30 bananas a day, what is that, like $5 or less, less than $5. And that's for like 3,000 calories. So like rice is way cheaper than that. Beans are way cheaper than that. So these are eating a very healthy and vegan lifestyle is possibly the cheapest way to live. But that's not necessarily realistic for a lot of people as far as their wants and their desires and what you're allowed to do. People can eat candy bars all day long. There's all kinds of different things. But vegan meats and stuff like that sometimes are pretty expensive. And so there is a cost issue. And so saying cost and taste, that makes me think that the idea is that it's like not that this is a bad thing, but you're not a person like me that like would want to eat not based on taste, based on just health alone. So most people want to eat based on taste, whether they can help it or not. It's mostly an addiction, but I don't want to put like a negative light on that right now. This is just responding to this email. But taste, sure, yeah. Like I miss a lot of meat taste. I spent most of my life eating meat. I'm 38 now, and I've been vegan for about 8 years. So yeah, I spent about something like 30, actually probably more like 25 of those 30 years eating meat. and I miss it. I still miss it. If I could eat meat that didn't cause any harm, like if I knew this like cow just accidentally died or something, and it wasn't going to be harmful for me to eat its flesh or whatever. It sounds gross because I've been vegan for so long. The idea is gross. I probably wouldn't do it. But if somebody like took this like animal that died of natural causes or got hit by a car or something and prepared it for me, and there was meat, and they're like, and I could magically know that in this vacuum there was no harm done to make this food, and I wasn't worried about my own health or anything, I would love that. I would like devour that and find it delicious or whatever. So yes, I empathize with anybody that's vegan that misses meat products and dairy products and all these different things. Okay, so yeah, so I get that, and that's tough, and that's one of those things. Like, well, I'll just continue here, and then we'll get back to that. Um, Essentially, also my motivation just isn't the same anymore. It's like if I'm not the perfect vegan in quotes, then it seems kind of pointless because everyone seems to be hypocritical in some regard. So it seems pointless. Okay, so yeah, I think that is a problem with a lot of things. A lot of people view things as like you have to be the perfect vegan or you're not a vegan. If you do something that isn't vegan, then you're not vegan and you don't care about animals. And so we see this in areas like a lot of vegans think that it's perfectly fine and vegan to eat bivalves, and a lot don't. And so vegans will tell people that are vegan that also eat bivalves that they're not vegan and that they don't care about animals. And so there is a problem here. Now, if somebody I mean, we use words to get points across. So if a word to somebody means a certain thing, then we don't need to change their minds if they think a vegan is somebody that doesn't eat bivalves. That's just what the word means to them. But to treat that person as if they are doing something just as bad as people that maybe eat beef or chicken or all these different things, or buy makeup products that have that are tested on bunnies and all these different things. There's a problem there. It definitely leads to this thought you're having here. And there's so many right and wrong things we can do in the world. There are things that can cause humans and animals suffering and pain. There are things that can cause pleasure. There are different things we can make right and wrong choices. Most people probably make a handful of wrong choices here and there all the time. Making decisions to buy a $5 coffee instead of donating that $5 to some towards some life you can save in some foreign country or something. This is just part of life, figuring out the perfect mix of how can I do the right things and be as helpful as possible and prevent suffering as much as possible without putting too much harm to my own life. But I don't think the difference is like deciding, okay, so I'm a vegan, I don't eat any animal products whatsoever, and I'm this way. But if I decide that it'll be easier for me to not be vegan, that therefore now I eat meat 3 meals a day and all these different things or whatever. If you decide that you are craving this animal product or that you need it for cost reasons or any of these different reasons because you feel like you can't be a perfect vegan, then you just adjust an element that will help with that part. If you need to eat like a steak a day or a steak a week or something like that, for whatever reason it is, whether it's health, cost, taste, whatever the thing is, we're not all going to be perfect. We're not all going to do the greatest things. So the more we can do, the better. So I just don't like this idea of somebody's vegan or they're not vegan. If I could like talk to somebody that's not vegan and get them to cut out what the most harmful thing, like I'd guess like chicken is probably the most harmful meat to eat, I think. So if I could convince somebody to just cut chicken out completely and just eat a little more beef or something, then that would be a good thing. Or if I could convince people to start hunting and they eat the exact same amount of meat, but they eat it from a hunted deer or elk or something. Or if you can find I don't know if you're allowed to hunt for cows. If they were to exist in the woods, would that be allowed? That'd be interesting. But every little bit of something good is good. So anyways, so I don't think anybody needs to worry about being a perfect vegan. In the same sense that nobody needs to worry about being a perfect human. Do the best you can, but a lot of people have a lot of ideas that doing a little too much extra for helping others and therefore having like a worse life yourself is a worse way to go. Okay, Nikki is here in the comments. Chicken is most harmful to who, the human or the chicken? To the chicken. As far as suffering goes. So cows, it's a pretty interesting situation. So part of it's going to be a breakdown of why we view one animal to have a different sentience level than another, and that's complicated, and I don't even know exactly where I stand on that. So setting that aside, one individual cow that's going to have a suffering, painful life is going to lead to a certain amount of calories, like how much their body can feed others. Where one individual chicken that will have a certain amount, or one lamb or one pig or whatever. So weight's going to have a huge part to play in it, but also how much suffering they have, what leads to their suffering. So cows, if they're on like a free range area or grass fed, which grass-fed doesn't mean that they're eating grass that's growing out of the ground. It just means that they are eating grasses. So it could be like grass, like hay, like the wheat grass, the grass that will lead to wheat berries. When the wheat's gone, the rest of that tall wheat grass is cut down. That's hay. And you can have alfalfa and all these different things. That's also part of grass-fed. It doesn't need to be currently growing in green. But anyways, there's various different ways that this can be done. But a cow doesn't need to live a miserable life to be farmed and used for meat. Now, I think they do oftentimes. And when they're in feedlots, from my current understanding, they're actually there for such a minimal amount of time. It's like a couple months or maybe even less than that, just right before the slaughter. And cows don't often, especially if you ignore the dairy side of things. I'm not familiar with cows having a wild amount of suffering. Where chickens in factory farms and in battery cages, these chickens are bred to grow a certain way and also injected with hormones to grow a certain way, to where in like 3 months they get to the size they would normally be in like 6 months, but because they gain the weight that quick, their legs break out from under them and they're just like sitting like on their own legs, unable to move, and just there minute after minute, hour after hour, day after day, just suffering in pure pain until they're killed. And so we can look at these different practices, we can see what the norms are, and then we can see what has the higher amount of suffering. And pigs might be worse. They might be just as bad, might be a little less bad than chickens. I really don't know. This is something I want to look further into and figure out all the details. But as I've mentioned many times, piglets have their teeth cut out, their tails cut off, their testicles cut out, and they're crammed into tiny cages and all this different stuff. But yeah, so I think this is an important thing. We can look at all these various things. So somebody that doesn't want to become vegan but wants to be less harmful, I know that vegans frown upon this idea, but somebody buying their meats or eggs or whatever from farms that treat their animals better. Now, we can comment on there being no humane slaughter, and that's true. If I was slaughtered, there's no way that I would call that like, oh, I'm glad I was humanely slaughtered. But that's not necessarily true, because if I were to be slaughtered, I would rather be just killed, taken out of my misery really quick, than to be tortured for a handful of years and then slaughtered or whatever. So anything better than something else is better than something else. So it's kind of complicated, and it really comes down to various different things. So far, just responding to this, now you said cost, so that's a concern. Because if somebody were to get like free range eggs or free range free roaming chicken, beef, whatever, there's going to be a higher cost to that kind of thing. So the cost doesn't play an exact role in that, but it's something worth thinking about when it comes to wanting to consume animal products, but also wanting to do some good. Okay. I'm going to continue here. It says, even if you're a vegan and overweight, are you actually vegan because you're still causing unnecessary harm by consuming extra plants? I recently saw a video by Lifting Vegan Logic about this very topic, and I was extremely disappointed by his response. So I'm guessing the part you're disappointed in is saying the overweight part. Are you actually vegan? So there's a handful of ways to look at it because I've covered this topic myself. And I think there are things that are priorities, and then there are things that are, they matter a little bit, but they're mostly just philosophical discussion. It's just mostly an interesting thing. And the question really comes down to is what's actually happening? What is the harm? Now, if all food causes death, whether it's pesticides causing insect death or the birds eating the pesticides, all these different things from crop deaths, then yeah, if consuming something causes death and you don't want to cause that death, you have to look at the outcome and what's happening here. Is consuming this thing leading me to survival? Is that worth this death? Okay, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but let's just say it is. Okay, is doing this thing leading me to the best health I can? Okay, I want to be alive, I want to be healthy. Maybe that's a good reason to let these few mice or insects or birds or whatever die in the fields or whatever. But then you can go, okay, so is it worth taste pleasure? So the same thing where we vegans will say to non-vegans, we'll say like, okay, you might think this is healthy for you, but if you're doing it just for taste pleasure, if you're eating unhealthy non-vegan ice cream, and this cow was milked and had the baby taken away and all this stuff, and this ice cream you have is full of sugar and all this stuff, and even the eater is willing to admit this is unhealthy, then is that justifiable? And I think it's clearly not justifiable. But then it becomes more complicated where you look at something like a vegan ice cream, where that's not a healthy thing. But is that justifiable? Are there deaths from like crop deaths or whatever that normally you'd call justifiable for eating what you need to survive or be healthy, but is it justifiable for taste pleasure? And I think it's not exactly simple. It sort of is simple, but it doesn't mean you have to follow that simple thing. It's kind of like it's probably simple that you could donate $5 to some charity instead of buying a $5 coffee. But do I think people need to do it? Am I going to tell people they're bad if they don't do it? No, because life's complicated and we don't want to be miserable. So we're going to do the best we can with what we got and work towards a better life until we can figure out how to go like, oh, am I really miserable? Am me not having this ice cream, am I miserable, or do I just think I'm miserable because I have an addiction to it and I'm craving it or whatever? So there's so many aspects of how to look at this, and there's no easy answer. And if the idea of being vegan and overweight means you're not a vegan because you're eating excess calories, if you think that's silly and you want to do your part by just not consuming animal products, then that's fine too. Like you're never going to get all vegans to agree on everything. And just because they don't all agree, or you feel like some vegans are telling you that you're doing it wrong, in my mind, it doesn't mean that it should just be a thing where you should just start causing extra harm for no reason. Now, there's almost never no reason. If you think like, oh, well, this doesn't seem worth it, so I'm going to cause this extra harm because I love the taste of it, then that's a pretty normal thing. That's actually what happened to me when I was first vegan, like when I was 21 or whatever. I was vegan for like over a year, and then I missed meat, and I went back to just eating full on all the animal products. And I knew it was wrong. I thought it was wrong, but I was so addicted to those foods and craving them. I'm happy that I'm not now. I can't believe I've gone 8 straight years with how much I remember liking them and how much I'm currently addicted to things like Impossible Burgers and these kind of things. But anyways, food addiction is real, and it's a tough thing. It plays a huge role, and I don't know what the right answer is, but yeah. Okay, Red Briar says, is there humane poison? That was probably about the humane execution. Oh, I see. It's referring to like if you poison like rats in a field, so like a crop death thing or whatever. Yeah, yeah. Like so that's the thing. Something can be more or less humane than something else. To call something specifically humane, I guess I would want to look at the definition again to find out what exactly that means. But yeah, I think that's a perfect example. If there are poisons to put out for rodents in fields, then if the poisons make these rodents have slow, painful deaths, I couldn't imagine how anybody could want such a thing. So if we had the capability of poisoning them where they have quicker deaths, then that's obviously better. And then there might be various ways to make it so the rodents just don't come near that area and they leave. And there's chances that that's not even best. We just have to look at all the different outcomes, all the different possibilities, and work towards what causes the least amount of suffering, pain, end of life, all these different things. And so it's complicated. Yeah. Okay. Mr. Chris says, hey, and I say, hey back. Okay. Let's see. Where are we at? Vegan logic. Okay. Anyway, I just wanted to hear your thoughts on this because you seem like a generally good person and honest too. I can see in your videos and your comments, you say your opinion no matter what others think and are willing to change your mind. So props to you. I'll keep whatever you say confidential between you and me. But I understand if it's just some guy's word on the internet. Take care. Okay. And then so I've talked to this person, so he knows that I don't need it to be confidential. And I agree. I like to be honest, and I like to share my opinion no matter what. And it's why maybe sometimes my subscriptions will go up really high and down really low. And but you know, it's whatever. I definitely don't. I don't try to provoke. I don't like to bring up ideas just to irritate people or anything. I just feel like casual talk about veganism. There's a lot of that, and I want to spend my time talking about the fringe cases and whatnot, and different situations like we're talking about here. But yeah, it's tricky. You just again, I like the idea of being the best you can be, trying to cause the least amount of suffering, and just doing the best you can do with what makes sense to you, with like create your own philosophy, hopefully based on reason, and do the best you can. Be as vegan as you can is probably a good way to be. So I view omega-3 fats as probably a very important thing, and especially because I want to make sure that my family's healthy, and my youngest child, my daughter, is 7 years old. And, she's been vegan since birth, and I want to make sure that she is as healthy as possible. So I want to make sure she has omega-3s, vitamin D, B12. Those are the only supplements we do. But outside of that, everything else is just mostly whole foods and whatnot. But at first, we were able to find some child, for little kids, it's really hard to swallow a big capsule. And omega-3s come in pretty big size capsules. And so anyway, she obviously couldn't swallow that. And it's made from algae. And so anyways, The kids ones, they have like chewables and little droppers and stuff like that, but they're really hard to find. They're hard to find vegan ones. And right now, even at the health food stores, the natural grocers, is it natural grocers? Yeah, that's the one we use. Um, the only one we could find, I think it might have a little dairy in it. It's not, I know it's not gelatin because a lot of the capsules have gelatin, but no, this is like a chewable one. Anyways, the omega-3 is very, very important. And the tiniest drop of dairy that must be in there. Anyways, I don't want to sacrifice her getting this omega-3. And so if anybody has any recommendations or ideas on vegan omega-3s for children with DHA and EPA, send it my way. I haven't searched insanely far, but anyways, I've got a couple of these bottles of this vitamin, and that's what I'm currently doing. Our D3 is vegan, and our B12, B12 is always vegan, I believe. And where D3 is not. But if we didn't have a good vegan source, one that we could afford, or one that just existed near us or was able to be purchased online, especially for kids, then I would just get whatever I had to get. If it, because a lot of vitamin D3 is made with the lanolin, which is from sheep's wool. I'm not sure exactly how that works out, but anyways, if that's how I had to make sure her vitamin D3 levels were at an appropriate level to be a healthy, functioning human, then that's what I would do. I mean, we don't live near the equator, so we get a lot less sun, and there's certain levels to be a healthy human of certain level of vitamin D, which, anyways. So I guess what my point is that, so I'm vegan, my whole family's vegan, we're fully vegan, but, and my most recent pair of Levi's I own, the logo on the back is actually one that made out of their new paper they use for logos, but they don't do it for all of them. So, so sure, I'm not going to make sure that the logo on the back of pants that I buy, isn't made out of leather or something like that. But yeah, every time we buy, like if my wife gets like makeup products or shampoo or anything like that, we make sure they're always cruelty free, because that's a simple thing to do. It's not usually a huge cost. Same thing with my wife's makeup and stuff. It's all vegan, cruelty free. And we don't eat animal products, but if we need to get a certain supplement and that's all we can get, that's what we get. We got to do the best we can, especially if we're looking out for our own health, because not everybody's the same. Vegan Gain says if he had to eat animal products to survive, like on an island or something, he would just let himself starve to death. And that's fine if you feel that way. That's great. Go for it. But I don't think anybody needs to feel obligated to feel this way, and nobody should feel obligated to be like a perfect vegan, because like, you could be a perfect human, you could be a perfect vegan, you could be a perfect, choose any different category. But I mean, every individual human is on this earth, and their actions could lead to good or bad or neutral. And if you do any actions that lead to bad, you have to weigh out, like, am I capable of not doing any of these actions? Okay, if not, then which ones are causing the most bad? Which ones am I able to change the most of? Like, somebody being the perfect vegan, it makes you think of the idea of, like, okay, well, if you're going to be the perfect human, if you have a house and it's a certain size, but you could stand to live in a house half that size, should you give half your house away? Should you sell your house and get a smaller house? Should you be obligated to live like in a small area? And how small is too small? And who gets to decide this kind of stuff? And so it's complicated, and we should all constantly be talking with each other and sharing ideas about what makes somebody good or bad, or what actions are bad or causing issues, and work towards doing the best we can, because there's no simple right answer. But yeah, I think something like being as vegan as possible is definitely a good thing. And this can change as we learn more about what it even means to be vegan, or what we think of as vegan, if some of the actions that lead to that cause more harm than things that are things we don't think of as vegan. then in my mind, that switches it. And then the thing that we don't think of as vegan becomes the vegan thing, depending on what we mean by vegan. I'm going to glance at this comment real quick. Randall says, you need cholesterol to make vitamin D3. You want to optimize vitamin D3 from sunlight. You need cholesterol. Okay. Yeah, so interesting. Let's see. Exposing your skin to sunlight while vegan is a bad idea. Interesting. I'll look into that. I'm kind of curious about that. I'm going to make a note about that. D3. I love learning new things. So I'll check into that. From my understanding is anything. So I live in Oregon in the U.S. and anything basically north of California, there's nothing you can do to really get sunlight to help your D3 levels. So anybody north of California needs a supplement of sorts or a food product that has it. Now I didn't know about this cholesterol business. But I'm curious about that. Yeah, I'm gonna look into that, and I'm curious if anybody else knows about that. Sharing the thoughts. But the best I can go off of is if your D3 levels are low when your blood's tested, that's not good. If they're high, that's good. I mean, if they're at a good level, that's good. And so when they're low, I'm all about the supplements. And I personally, mine was low, pretty low. My understanding is like maybe 80-90% of the U.S. Is low in D3. I don't know if it's more prevalent in vegans. I'm guessing not. If 90% are low, then 90% are low. But mine was wildly low, and now mine's wildly high, and in a good way. And yeah. So, anyways, there's that. The last thing I want to say. Oh yeah. So I'm writing. I'm doing a little writing right now. It's a little project where it's a dialogue. It's a couple characters talking back and forth. Both characters are essentially vegan, even if the word vegan's not used in this project, but where they're talking about what's best to advocate for the abolition of use of farm animals, or to advocate for legal changes in animal welfare for farm animals, and to like do incremental changes towards advocating for complete abolition. And I currently have not been convinced that the best thing to do is to advocate for abolition. But within this book that I'm putting together, I want to have the best arguments for both sides. I want it to be a conversation where anybody that thinks abolition is the side to fight for, I want them when they read this to feel like the abolition side character is saying the greatest arguments you can say for total abolition. And then I want the people that think that welfare is the best route to go to feel like that's the best arguments for welfare. So it's not going to be a one-sided thing, even though I have my own personal take and I lean more towards welfare. I'm co-writing this with at least one other person, maybe a couple people, to get the best ideas. But anyways, anybody listening, on either side, I'd love to hear the best arguments for either side. But if you'd like to share with me what you think is the best argument for either side, basically, do so in the comments here, or go to the community section. I asked this question recently, and you could put it in the comments there. But I would love to take your argument and put it within the book, and I'm probably gonna have maybe a couple hundred people read. Once the book's closer to ready, have them read it and give me some feedback to see if there's anything worth changing before having copies printed. All right, so Randall says, no offense, but how can you be so ignorant about diet/health and still have your child on a vegan diet? How can you be so ignorant about diet? What do you mean? Are you referring to the D3 thing? Not knowing about cholesterol making you absorb D3? I don't know if that's a commonly known thing. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I fully understand. I'm not offended. No worries. Everybody has a thing. I would guess that 99%, let's say 95% to be favorable towards your side. I'm guessing 95% of, let's say, people in the US, but I'm guessing if you go across the whole world, we're talking at very least 99%. But let's say in the US, 95% of people would have no clue about this idea of this thing you're saying. Would that mean, now let's assume you like the idea of people having children. Would that mean you don't think any of those people should have children until they know about it? Or are you just claiming because you don't like the idea of veganism and the vegan diet that you think that people should know more before putting somebody on a vegan diet versus putting them on the diet you recommend? Because that just doesn't make any sense. I don't think it makes sense. I would assume you don't think it makes sense, but maybe that's not what you're saying. So yeah. Let's see. Most people aren't vegan. Correct. Yeah. I'm not sure what's being missed here. Most people aren't vegan. If you want, I can send you a link to this this live stream, and you can hop on here and we can chat for a couple minutes. I do have to get going in like 5 minutes, but I can send you a link and we can just throw a few ideas back and forth. You let me know. I'm gonna close out of this other thing. There we go. Randall, you want to hop on here? We shall see. Humans make their own cholesterol. Okay. Randall, what do you think of that? I'm gonna let's see. Do humans make their own cholesterol? How it's made a human product. Okay, there we go. This is Harvard Health Publishing. Okay. Only about, Okay. How it's made, cholesterol production in your body. Here, let me do a thing. Share screen. How it's made. Okay. So Randall is saying that you need cholesterol to properly get vitamin D3. And then somebody else, who was that? Bello says that humans make their own cholesterol. So I just looked it up. How it's made, cholesterol production in your body. This is from Harvard. Harvard something or other. Harvard Health Publishing. Only about 20% of the cholesterol in your bloodstream comes from the food you eat. Your body makes the rest. Cholesterol has a bad reputation thanks to its well-known role in promoting heart disease. Okay. Excess cholesterol in the bloodstream is a key contributor to artery clogging, plaque, which can accumulate and set the stages for a heart attack. However, the role of cholesterol in your body is not all negative. Okay. So I'll look into this later, but that's enough to recognize that our body makes our own cholesterol. It looks like 80% of the cholesterol in the bloodstream. I don't know if there's cholesterol elsewhere that is good or exists at all, or if the bloodstream is the only place cholesterol is. So 20%. Comes from the food. So if you don't have that food, I wonder if that's an issue. If you have 80% or 20% less than you're supposed to have, that'll be worth looking into. Okay. Let's see. Plant-based nutrition has been proven to reverse many diseases. Humans need precursor to make their own. Where do you think those? Okay. Let me guess. Interesting. Yeah, Randall, my email address is in the About section of my channel. If you have some information on that further that is different than what this Harvard paper is saying, not that this paper is necessarily right, it's just the first thing that came up. But anyways, you could send something my way, I guess. Okay. I'm always up for learning new things. Oh, interesting. Yeah. This does say cholesterol also is needed to make vitamin D. Let's see, hormones including testosterone and estrogen. Fat dissolving bile acid. Okay. Um, yeah, and it sounds like the body makes it itself, at least to some extent. So I wonder if the extent it doesn't is an issue. But I'd love to learn more about that. If anybody wants to share some links, and maybe I can read some on the stream sometime, and we can learn together. All right. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care. I'll see you in the next one.